Hello everyone, my name is Charlie Konecki. I'm the chairman of the Public Safety Building Committee for the town of Southampton. Over the course of the last few years, we've been working towards assessing the needs of the town and the antiquated facilities that both our police and fire and EMS are in. We've reached a point now where we're going to be needing the town's support to construct a new facility in town. Over the course of the next few months, you're going to see videos on your cable access channel giving you more information as this evolves.
The police department has been around in this particular building, the former town hall, it was retrofitted into the building at around late 1960s, early 70s, and really hasn't changed much. We incorporated a little bit more space after the town hall moved across the street.
The station originally was built in 1863. It was designed as a schoolhouse. In 1927 they had abandoned the schoolhouse, and in 1949 they adopted it as a fire station. It was never designed to be a fire station. The building is 150 years old, and there's just a number of things that don't accommodate a modern fire service to keep our guys, our equipment to peak performance. Hopefully the town will understand that we are in great need of a new station and support us with that. We have no real lockers. We have some that have been given to us for about a quarter of the guys. The rest of the firefighters' gear is on hook racks next to the fire engines. The fire engines are 40 feet long, heavy, and if a firefighter, while getting dressed next to an engine, slips under it, drops any personal items, it's a liability to the town. It's a liability to my firefighters. It's a danger that we're all aware of and we all have to work with. When the trucks start, there's no kind of exhaust extrication. It can fill the garage up with carbon monoxide. There's no way to get it out besides leaving the doors open. In the winter, that's a challenge. Some trucks that are older run dirtier than some of the new ones. When the trucks start, even back here in the office, you'll smell the exhaust, and it takes potentially hours for it to leave.
There's concerns about the building security and the personnel, as well as the public safety while they're in the building.
For emergency response, when guys come in, they park in a parking lot where town hall traffic can pass in front of them as they make their way over to the fire station. In an emergency, it's one thing to be dealing with all your own guys who are watching out for you as you're running across. It's another for the general public. It's like crossing a roadway. Probably the biggest concerns that we have for building issues are groundwater that seeps up through a drain floor that had been hydraulically sealed a number of times. Unfortunately, the groundwater still gets past the cement plugs that were put in, and we can get up to 4 inches of water that pools underneath our ambulance. The building at 150 years old is just got a lot of openings for mice and rodents to get in. If we stood here long enough, you would hear mice running in the ceiling. We do set out multiple traps to try and keep the rodent population down, and there is no maintenance budget for the fire department. It all comes out of our operating budget. Many things just are not conducive to operating a sanitary ambulance out of this building. It's been deteriorating for 150 years, and we've gotten by and tried to add it on, and we're having more and more trouble getting it to accommodate us.
Our communications, or the dispatch center, is not for its purpose in that the dispatchers act as civilian employees. However, they also have some roles within the department where they have to leave that dispatch center for a short period of time. The room itself and the facilities in the room are not adequate for today's requirements and expectations of a police department. The dispatch center is open and very vulnerable to any arrestee or detainee if they should have the ability to fight their way out or escape from the booking room. They can run right outside the door, have access to the dispatcher, or exit through the police department's main entrance through the lobby. The communication center is not IT compatible, and it has never been IT compatible. It really was it's throughout at least the 20 plus years I've been here, there's been many updates, if you will, of the dispatch center, but it's always been retrofitted. That room was not designed initially to be a communication center, and as a result, if you would look underneath the desks and the tabletops, you'll find overloaded circuits, overloaded outlets. It's not IT compatible for the current requirements and expectations of a police dispatch center.
The station never had electrics in it. Back in 1863, technology wasn't even a concept. And when people are on an ambulance, there's a lot of personal information that you can't divulge, needs to be protected. Our servers need to be on site. They need to have backup. Currently, our servers are in a back closet behind me. The server power is through an extension cord that's drilled through a hole in the wall and plugged into a convenient outlet. We have multiple problems with our electrics that blow fuses, and all of this is protecting vital information. We do our best to back everything up. I think firefighters as a group are a tremendous group at getting by with what we've got. The fire department consists of myself, and we have 30 part-time firefighters that cover one shift, 8 to 5, 7 days a week, and they don't complain. The office has just a thin doorway to where the guys are in their day room. If I have personnel issues, if I have to have any kind of conference, if it's information that isn't just out to the general public, even to my firefighters, I need to ask them to leave their day room just so that I can have a conversation. So the office spaces are not designed for effective fire service or administration. There's no sleeping quarters here at the station. The bathroom is really just a hodgepodge design. There's health concerns just with the bathroom we do have. There's a sketch on one of the cement walls next to one of the fire trucks that tells you approximately where the tank is, but have no idea where the discharge is from that tank.
The dispatchers often are in the building by themselves, and as a result, you know, oftentimes there's no facility, there's no bathroom facility for the dispatchers readily for them just to step out of that room into a private bathroom where they still have a adequate means to use the facility when needed. When a dispatcher needs to use the bathroom, they actually have to call a police officer in from the street and use the facility, and then the police officer goes back out. Should there be an incident where the police officer cannot, and sometimes there are, where a police officer is required to be out, you know, outside the building, whether it be for an emergency, it could be hours, and that dispatcher has no means to use the facility. It's kind of an unfriendly environment for a dispatcher that's required to stay in a room for 8 hours.
There's no laundry facility. If someone on an ambulance has vomit on them, they can't clean up here at the station besides in an old wash sink. If they work a fire and there's any kind of hazardous material that they've been working with, if their gear gets dirty, there's no provision in the fire station now to clean it. The expectation now is that a firefighter will bring their gear home and wash it, which exposes their whole family potentially to carcinogens. We encourage our firefighters to take their gear to one of our neighboring stations to try and use their washing machines rather than exposing their families to carcinogens due to washing. But there's just a number of problems like that we deal with every day to survive in this station.
The operations room within the police department, again, this was a former planning board room where they just stored planning for the town's streets and so forth. And as a result, the IT compatibility is not adequate because we have, we have to maintain computers and a lot of electronics as well as equipment within this operations room. Having those things in mind, as well as just the building itself just being outdated and not energy efficient, the need for a public safety complex is very important. The building was designed initially as the town hall, and then it was retrofitted a police department in the late 60s or early 70s. And they added 2 garages. These garages don't serve as a sally port. A sally port is a secure area where a police car can pull into, lock a garage door, and securely remove a arrestee from the police car directly into the secure booking room. The police department's never was designed to have a sally port. It had two garage bays. One garage bay serves as, that's what it is, a garage. It can't serve as a sally port because it's just too small. The doors of the cruisers can't even open entirely within that garage bay. It was really just to serve as a garage bay to protect a car. The other garage bay is the booking room. When a police officer arrests somebody, they're brought back to the police department to be processed. There is no secure area to bring that person from the police cruiser to the booking area. As a result, we actually have to walk through the lobby with somebody in custody, and that lobby may have people in the lobby requesting assistance from the police department. So we have to make sure that nobody's in that lobby as we're bringing an arrestee through. The booking room is a room where we actually process an arrestee. We bring them into the police department after they're arrested, and that's where we gather their information, process their fingerprints, take their photo, and so forth. Well, our booking room has no physical barrier between the booking officer and the arrestee. There are times when an arrestee is non-compliant. They may even be violent towards the police officer. And without that barrier, it leaves a police officer in a very vulnerable position. The arrestee would be standing up, the booking officer would actually be sitting down. The arrestee has a height advantage over the booking officer and could easily take a swing at the police officer, could spit at the police officer. When a person becomes non-compliant, or if they are non-compliant or potentially violent, that non-barrier is very concerning for any police officer, because there is no protection between the police officer and the non-compliant or violent arrestee. The booking room shares a wall with the lobby, and there's no adequate sound barrier. And as a result, if the conversations between the arrestee as well as the police officer, it can very easily be heard by anybody that's within the lobby. So there's privacy concerns there as well. The police department serves as the Emergency Operations Center. The Emergency Operations Center is the hub of where all activities for an emergency or a large scope event occurs in town, such as the storm, the October storm several years ago. And as a result, because this building serves as the Emergency Operations Center, there has to be adequate room for emergency personnel of all disciplines, whether it be the fire department, EMS, the police department, the Board of Health, the highway department. This is where those emergency management officials meet and manage an emergency. The EOC does not have any radio compatibility, telephone compatibility. In essence, it's the size of a large closet, if you will, where people meet and try to discuss the approach on maintaining or managing an emergency. The emergency operations room also doubles as the kitchenette, if you will, for the dispatchers, where we obviously have a coffee maker, a toaster oven, and behind you is a refrigerator. So again, nothing within this police department was intended to be intended for its purpose. The design of this building or this particular facility, it was not intended. The forethought of safety, security, and purpose was never considered for a police department as it progresses with time. I don't think people in the public really have a real understanding of how many records the police department has to maintain, and as well as property management. Any property that is surrendered, such as firearms, pursuant to a restraining order, sometimes we might get 100 guns at a time. Whenever we serve a restraining order and someone has to surrender those, we have to find an adequate location to store them safely, as well as this is other people's property. We have to maintain this property. It cannot be in a room where there's overabundance of moisture, because it could cause some rust. We have to maintain records. Some records have to be maintained permanently. And as a result, as time goes on, records create a lot of space. The maintenance of records, as well as property, creates a lot of space, and we don't have adequate storage within the police department for that space.
Storage is an issue in general for us. There's one storage behind me which is just tight, knocked through a cement wall. I've got storage cabinets in the bathroom. I've got storage cabinets behind the ambulances. We have a loft area with storage facilities up there. We have a trailer we put in back of the station. There's just not adequate area, physical square footage in the fire station to accommodate the things that we need to store. In this day and age, we need to be frugal. We can't just throw things away.
Evidence has to have essentially two levels of security. You have to have a separate evidence room, and then there has to be even another additional level of security for certain types of evidence, to include drugs and narcotics, jewelry, and money. And again, as the department grows and there's higher expectations of police agencies, we have to adapt to this. And as a result, we have adapted, but not to the point where it's controlled to the expectations that they should be. Processing rooms require information technology compatibility. You need a computer in there for the entry of property into the police department's database. The current, if you will, call it an evidence processing room, is an abandoned room from the town hall upstairs with no IT compatibility. Training is invaluable for police departments, and because of laws are dynamic and models of policing changes so often, and society just has a higher expectation of police officers as time goes on, training is essential and it's invaluable. And oftentimes in-house training is important, but in order to have in-house training, you need that information technology compatibility, and such as a large screen, a computer, and so forth, to be able to instruct a group of police officers or firefighters, whatever it may be.
So this is where you do the training?
This is where we'll do department training, CPR, first aid.
The department just doesn't have, again, that compatibility. Also, a lot of training firms will give, if you're a host department, you don't have to pay for the training. And the current times of the town and the budget of the police department, as well as the fire department, I'm sure that the training, it can be very expensive. So if we had a actual training facility where it is IT compatible, I think a lot of training would be easier to get at a much less expense.
With the new public safety complex, ultimately we'll have a quicker response time, and we'll be able to address the issues of a cleaner environment for the firefighters, the ambulances, and the fire trucks.
I believe it's very prudent that the town build a public safety complex to serve the needs of this growing community. The town continues to grow, and as a result, the demands of the emergency services of the town increase. And there is no longer any space to retrofit the facility. This building cannot keep up with the expectations of a police department or a dispatch center. Most importantly, information technology is a very vital part of our society, and this building, being built originally in 1908, was not intended as a facility for emergency management personnel. We
are in dire need of a good station that performs for a modern fire service, and hopefully this is the time that will happen for Southampton.
I'm Bill Barkham, retired fire chief from Southampton. I spent almost 30 years in that building, in the existing fire station. That building houses multi-millions of dollars worth of equipment, not just the vehicles that you see on the floor, but all the equipment that goes with the operation. That building is kind of hazardous. There's people been hurt in it because of a tripping factor. The wiring in the building is really atrocious. If something isn't done for that building, to replace that building, it could be very, very costly to the town.